Michael Saylor and Strategy CEO Phong Lee both confirm that MicroStrategy will be selling some of their 818,000 Bitcoin. These announcements came last night on Strategy's earnings call, and surprisingly, it hasn't had an impact on the price. Bitcoin touched $82,000 this morning, despite the biggest corporate holder talking about selling some of their treasury. I'm going to play you the two clips, and then we will answer some of the questions that many of you are probably having right now. So let's start with the first one. This first one is Michael Saylor. These are very short clips. I'm not trying to play them like out of context here. I'm just giving you the meat of this. And again, I'm going to follow it up with the Phong Lee clip.
You buy Bitcoin with credit, you let it appreciate, and then you sell Bitcoin to pay the dividend. And as long as you're issuing credit in excess of the break-even point, then this business works and grows forever.
So, very clearly, a big divide from what we've heard Saylor say for many years of never sell your Bitcoin. Now it seems like the strategy playbook is evolving a little bit. But before I fully break it down and show you some of the headlines, here's Phong Lee.
And six, not necessarily most importantly, but maybe most notable, we will sell Bitcoin when it's advantageous to the company. Right? We're not going to sit back and just say, we'll never sell the Bitcoin. We want to be net aggregators of Bitcoin, increasing our total Bitcoin, but more importantly, increasing our Bitcoin per share, because we think that is what is going to be most accretive long-term for MSTR and for the common.
So obviously, very surprising kind of turn of events here. Oops. And everyone on Twitter was freaking out. Everyone was tweeting like, wait, what's going on? I thought it was never sell your Bitcoin. And now we're getting to the point where they're actively talking about selling Bitcoin. Obviously, from a lot of people's perspectives, it's most likely the case that they're thinking, well, one of the biggest bulls in Bitcoin is now talking about selling Bitcoin. It took, 5 years of him basically as the Pied Piper out here saying to everyone, you just acquire Bitcoin for the long term. You never sell your Bitcoin. We are never going to sell Bitcoin. And now it seems like things have changed a little bit. Now, what is that big change? Obviously, I think it is the fact that Saylor has more than just the MSTR common stock. He's got the Strike, the Stretch, the Stride, all of these other products now. And I think part of this conversation is what we've been saying on this show in regards to the Bitcoin treasury companies. It's becoming very obvious to almost everyone in the Bitcoin space that there's not much of a business model by just buying Bitcoin and acquiring Bitcoin and then expecting people to give you money. The cash flow problem is the biggest problem for these Bitcoin treasury companies. And now we're realizing, or maybe, Saylor and Phong Lee and Strategy knew all along that this would finally be the end goal. Now, in conversation of how much impact will this have, in my opinion, kind of doubtful. But let's go to some of the social media commentary about it. Obviously, I think everyone saw this one. If you're on Twitter, Watcher Guru comes out, does a tweet. Michael Saylor's strategy proposes selling some Bitcoin to pay dividends. You buy Bitcoin with credit, you let it appreciate, and then you sell Bitcoin to pay dividend. And then if you were looking through Google this morning on the Bitcoin news story, almost every media organization ran with that quote. Saylor, the biggest bull in Bitcoin, is going to sell Bitcoin. It's over. Even the bulls are getting bearish on Bitcoin. Even the bulls no longer believe in Bitcoin. And you can see, CoinDesk Strategy way selling Bitcoin to fund dividends amid Q1 net loss. Also, that was one of the other big kind of news stories that came out of this is that Strategy reported a $12.5 billion Q1 loss. Obviously, I think that's just because of the price action was negative through Q1. So you can see there is a lot of negative sentiment building around Strategy. Personally, I think they are trying to FUD Strategy here, FUD Saylor. But there is a move away from the narrative that we've heard from Saylor. But going further, Yahoo Finance strategy shares slip after wider than expected loss on Bitcoin declines. Michael Saylor said he would never sell Bitcoin. Now he says he might. Strategy from Bloomberg. Strategy Saylor signals potential shift to Bitcoin sales, etc., etc., etc. Or Reuters. Saylor's strategy posts wider quarterly loss on Bitcoin slump. So as you can see, there is, I don't want to say necessarily a coordinated attack here, but there is a very clear narrative trying to be built out right now that one of the biggest bulls in Bitcoin, literally, as I've been saying for a while, the guy that's probably keeping us out of like the 40K gulag in price has now shifted and said we are going to sell some Bitcoin. Now, is this really that big of a deal? Is probably the question that I'm asking here, because I think we all understand the Bitcoin treasury strategy, the financial side of how a Bitcoin treasury company will survive is one of the big conversations. Hence why last week at the Bitcoin conference, we heard Jack Mallers partner with Tethers for 21 Capital and Electron. And the whole idea was, look, if you want to be a Bitcoin treasury company, we think the next move will be you need cash flow. Now, Saylor's strategy doesn't have, no pun intended, Saylor's company, their business strategy, again, no pun intended, does not really have cash flow in a traditional sense. The only money coming in is basically people trying to buy their equity, trying to attract investors so that they can issue more credit, issue more stock so they can buy more Bitcoin. A lot of people have been calling it a Ponzi. And a lot of people, cynical Bitcoiners, some of my friends are like, the Ponzi's up, guys. The Ponzi is over for Saylor, and the rubber's finally hitting the road. Now, this is probably the general cynical take of what Saylor was saying. I think from a business perspective, from a financial perspective, I don't think it's really that crazy of an idea. It seems more of like an asset balance sheet management move, obviously. Like, water is wet. But in context of how much capital is being brought in through the Stretch, Strike, Stride, all the other products that Saylor has created through strategy, I really don't think it's going to be a huge deal. The headlines and the tweets and the engagement are making it seem as if Saylor basically said, we're going to liquidate our entire Bitcoin treasury because we're going to have trouble to pay back our dividends, which is clearly not the case. If you see the Michael Saylor tweet, which, yeah, he tweeted this morning, which I think obviously this is a tweet that he made because he saw the backlash on Twitter. He saw the people freaking out. He saw the anti-sentiment towards his business move. And so here's what Saylor tweeted this morning, which I think lends to the idea of they're not going to be selling their whole strategy or whole Bitcoin holdings. And he goes, Bitcoin capital gains fund the Stretch credit dividends. That is a stark difference from the clip that we saw, though obviously he did clarify a little better in the tweet than necessarily in that soundbite that was circulating. But he's not saying, hey, we are going to be forced to sell Bitcoin to pay back these dividends. He's basically saying, look, the gains we get from holding this Bitcoin, we will take some off the table so that we can continue paying our dividend, which I think is where the balance sheet idea makes perfect sense. And maybe you're not the biggest fan of that idea. I know a lot of people in the chat, a lot of Bitcoiners have this idea. I'm going to hold this Bitcoin forever. I'm never going to sell it. Why would you sell the best pristine collateral, best money in the world? Well, this is a business. And obviously, if you have some capital gains or further, when I was thinking through this morning, I'm like, I mean, he's basically saying like, yeah, I have, 30K, 30K in debt this month. I have 100K in gains this month. It's not that big of a deal to be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to just pay this off with some of my gains here. It's like a simple financial move. But again, the headlines going around right now, and this is probably where the broader sentiment perspective comes in. what did it sound like when you saw this on Twitter? What did the initial kind of engagement tweets essentially say? It's like, oh, Saylor's going to sell his whole Bitcoin treasury holdings. Like, it's over. The biggest bear or biggest bull is finally going to get out of the market. We knew this was going to happen. And you see everyone ran with that. In actuality, when he kind of, unpacks it, he's like, yeah, we will sell some of our Bitcoin, but only the capital gains of it. Only a very small portion of our stack are we going to sell to pay these dividends, which isn't that crazy. This is what I think Saylor has been saying for a very long time, though obviously on Twitter and through the media, it is an interesting headline, to say the least. It's like, oh, wait, didn't you used to say for years, never sell your Bitcoin? And now is your company in trouble? And you realize you have to sell Bitcoin, or further, you are being forced to sell Bitcoin. And it's like, no, he's like, I'm gonna take some of the gains, keep this thing going. It's really not that crazy of an idea. Taking off, say, I don't know, 5,000 Bitcoin when you're adding, what did he add the first Q1? I think the numbers were like 80,000 plus Bitcoin. It's not that crazy. It's really not that big of a deal. But I think because Saylor has been so vocal on this idea of never sell your Bitcoin, now he's saying, oh, I have to sell Bitcoin, or we will sell Bitcoin. I think it's making a lot of people uncomfortable here. I think a lot of people are looking at this headline and they're really worried about their bags. They're like, oh no, Saylor's going to get in trouble and he's going to have to liquidate his entire holdings. And then we're going to really go into the gulags. It's over for the bull run. Like, what about my bag, Saylor? I thought you were going to pump up the price of Bitcoin. I thought you were going to save us here. I thought you're our savior. And now you're telling us you're going to sell Bitcoin. I think it's overblown. Obviously, it is a stark move from previous narratives, but it's really not that crazy of a move when you do a little second order thinking here. It's really a minor move, but what do we know? What do I know? I'm just seeing the narratives happen on Twitter, on the corporate press, and I think this is just a continuation of the Saylor hit pieces. It's just evolving. What did we used to say, Nico? They're not bringing their best anymore. The FUD is not getting any better. It's just progress. Wait, you had a. What's your quote? What's your quote? The FUD is suffering from inflation.
All right. So first of all, happy to be back, guys. Got to give a shout out to Opti. The Bitcoin conference was absolutely crazy last week, and it literally took a lot out of me. But a couple of things to unpack. So major announcement by 21 with the proposed merger of Electron and Strike. This would be the first true Bitcoin stock that actually has cash flow, right? Because a lot of the other treasury companies, they don't necessarily have cash flow. This would be the first, I wouldn't even call it a treasury company. I would just use Mahler's own words.
Bitcoin company.
A Bitcoin company that it has cash flow, it has a treasury, and it has multiple sources of revenue that all have to do with Bitcoin, right? So that's a first. That's massive, massive news. Now, is it a coincidence? Is it destiny? Or whatever you want to call it? The week after they made this massive, massive announcement, because again, 21 wouldn't be in a position to have to sell their Bitcoin in the first place because they have the necessary cash flow. But this brings me to, and again, this isn't my personal opinions. I'm just going to read you guys some of the comments that were posted. So this is Bob Lucas, very well followed kind of like analyst and stuff. And he said, these are his words, not mine. Bob Lucas says, sell Bitcoin to pay somebody for giving you money to buy Bitcoin. Wait, and nobody thought financial history thought of this. I'll let you guys,
that's a good tweet.
I'll let you guys interpret that as you can. But I kept telling you guys that the stretch product was like the iPhone moment, and it was a massive deal. And the reason it was a massive deal is because for fixed income investors, it would be giving you that 11.5% yearly return, which is absolutely massive. But at the same time, you find themselves in these situations where, because strategy doesn't have the necessary cash flow to justify its valuation, or does it have the necessary cash flow in order to pay for those dividends, they might be put in a situation where they have to sell their Bitcoin. And again, I wouldn't criticize that statement so much, but from a stockholder's perspective, and I don't hold any strategy, I don't really hold stocks at all. I'm just a very simple guy, and I buy spot Bitcoin if I had spot Bitcoin, and I would put it in self-custody if I had spot Bitcoin. But Saylor did say for the longest time, and this was his line, you never sell your Bitcoin, over and over and over and over again. And everyone remembers that. And all those posts were essentially being recycled online over and over and over again. So when this announcement was made yesterday, if you're a strategy holder, I'm not saying that the stock isn't going to perform really well, and I'm not questioning Saylor's abilities whatsoever. The guy's clearly a genius. He has clearly experience in the financial markets. He survived the dot-com crash. You know, he survived for 20 years for his stock basically going sideways. He managed to keep control of his company, and then he, you know, pulled off one of the biggest comebacks in market history, where his stock went from $20 a share, where it was for like 20 years. And he was basically saying there was nothing we could do. We couldn't compete with Microsoft. And the stock went all the way up to $500. So you can't discredit Saylor. You can't say, oh, look, he sold his Bitcoin now it's a wrap, pack it up. You know, the Ponzi's unraveling. No. I'm not saying that whatsoever. What I am saying is ammunition was given to the trolls. Ammunition was given to the people that are strategy haters. Ammunition was given to the people that had doubts on Bitcoin treasury companies. Ammunition was given to them. And that ammunition that was given to them was Saylor for many years saying, you shall never sell your Bitcoin. That he made it one of his rules, right? So now you have it like a couple years later where strategy's put in a position where they're seeing their earnings and they're like, hey guys, like we might be in a position where we have to sell our Bitcoin. And obviously that's not a good look. Like, I'll be honest. And I'm a big Saylor fan, right? But the big news out of all this, guys, is, and I've been telling you this since October, if you guys have been tuning into the show, ladies and gentlemen, this is what capitulation looks like, boys and girls. This is what bottoming out looks like, boys and girls. In October, I told you that this cycle, what would happen was that you would see the treasury companies having to sell their Bitcoin. We never thought, and I was on record saying this, I never thought strategy would be one of these treasury companies, but even the treasury company of the treasury companies is now going out on record and saying, hey, we might be put in a position where we have to sell our Bitcoin, right? And I told you guys, if you want to see what capitulation looks like, this is it. You're watching it in 4K, right? Now, I know a lot of people have been criticizing me, Opti included, calling me a bear and saying, hey, Nico, you're a bear and you're this and you're that. Okay, fair enough. What I'm trying to say is, I think that if we hold these price levels for the next 3 months or so, if we channel between the 80K and the 60K region, I think there's a very high probability that the bottom was in. And I'm going on record saying that.
Yeah, 40% late, but all right, I'll give it to you.
I'm going on record saying that. Hey, listen, you got October wrong. I might have gotten this wrong.
Let's go. Hey, let's go.
Let's see what happens over the next 3 months. The next 3 months is really what's going to show. Who was right and who was wrong and all of that stuff.
Maybe we're just half right.
But I'm going to be paying attention to the summer months, because there is a very famous quote, right, which is sell in May and then go away. So can Bitcoin hold these price levels? Again, it's between 80 and 60K. Can it range between 80 and 60K over the summer? If it can, then I think the bottom is in. There's a very high probability that the bottom is in. If we can get through the summer and we're still above the 60K region, I don't see us going down into the 50s and the 40s and the high 30s. I just don't see it happening, just because of, again, this cycle was different in the sense that we didn't have a euphoric top. What we had was a top on apathy. So to think that the bear cycle would play differently is very logical, because if we didn't have a euphoric top, why would we have a 70 to 80% correction? Because usually when you have those euphoric tops, that's when the mania comes in. That's when retail starts to pile in. And those are the first people that capitulate when the price starts going down, right? So we didn't really have that influx of mania, of retail mania coming in. So are we really going to have that capitulation of retail mania going out? That's the big question. So I am feeling more bullish than I was feeling towards the beginning of the year. And I think the question on everybody's mind is the bottom in, right? And I don't think anyone has the answer to that question. I think we're just observers, we're commentators, and we'll keep you guys informed. But sitting at $82,000 is pretty good. I think that's a 20% rise from the high. And crazy news happening overall in just the Bitcoin world, right? With the 21 announcement last week, and then the Saylor announcement this week. It's never a dull or boring day in the Bitcoin industry.
Debatable.
Something happened.
Highly debatable.
But
wait. I do kind of have to push back on the capitulation of Bitcoin treasury strategy stuff, though it is being taken as one. Like, this could potentially be one of those signals that in hindsight we look back and be like, yeah, Saylor basically saying he's going to sell some Bitcoin should have been very obvious that, like, we're at the bottom. But I think, to be clear, especially from what Saylor tweeted, they're basically implying that when it goes back up, they will sell some Bitcoin to pay some dividends. He did say Bitcoin capital gains here. So I don't think it's necessarily a bear market bottom, like we're running out of money. I think that's where a lot of the context is being overblown. I don't think Phong Lee or Michael Saylor either said we might have to liquidate our Bitcoin treasury to pay the dividends. Again, to be clear, Saylor said Bitcoin capital gains pays stretch dividends, hence implying when the price goes up, they will sell some of their Bitcoin to pay the dividends.
Yeah, but I mean, like, and I see a lot of people like coming in and again, these are people that obviously hold a lot of strategy stock, and I do hear them saying, like, basically, like, look, like, Saylor might sell a little bit of Bitcoin this week, but he ends up buying more Bitcoin the next week. But listen, if you just boil it down to first principles, right? Which I think is really, really, really important, right? Is, look, ultimately, this wouldn't have been a big issue. I don't think that this would have been like, it wouldn't be news.
It wouldn't even be news.
It wouldn't even been news. The fundamental problem is the promise, right? The fundamental problem is the slogan. You don't sell your Bitcoin, right? That is the fundamental issue here, is that was said, that was put on, it like became part of like the Bitcoin lexicon. Like, you don't sell your Bitcoin, but that it's like, you don't sell your Bitcoin, but in a particular situation, you could have to sell your Bitcoin.
Well, I mean, just the soundbite, don't sell your Bitcoin, it sounds really good, but like, everyone's like, it's money. I want to use my money eventually. But like, in that context, it's like, I get it. Just don't sell your whole stack.
But let me like kind of like add on that, right? Like, it's interesting to me because Saylor ultimately, he is class of 2021, right?
It's 2020 though. I think
2021 was when he made the announcement.
Was it?
At the Bitcoin conference in Miami?
Yeah, but he was stacking in 2020.
I guess he was stacking,
yeah, he was stacking in 2020.
when people didn't know. So he's class of 2020. Now, here's the thing. If you've been in this industry long enough and you've survived a couple cycles, you all know at this point that you don't sell your Bitcoin does not work, right?
If you're all in,
you're all in, right? Which Saylor is, and a lot of us took that, right? A lot of us, you know.
Now, Nico, now you're giving them ammunition.
Went down that route. So, but this is something that you only learn through paying your dues. The only difference here is that Saylor has a lot more capital. It's a lot more public. There's a lot more eyeballs on it. So me telling my friends and family, hey, don't sell your Bitcoin in 2017 and 2018 and 2019. And then, you know, me having to sell a little bit of Bitcoin because, you know, perhaps I got overextended or something like that, like whatever, that doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't really hold weight. Like, people forget about it, right? Because I'm not a massive publicly traded company. But when Saylor does it, it's a lot more eyeballs. But the point I'm trying to make is that he's just going through the same cycles that all of us have gone through. If you've been in the space and if you've held through multiple cycles, that's the only fundamental difference, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, I mean, that's my take on all this. Is that I think it would have been a nothing burger of news.
Totally.
But the fact that he made it part of his brand and his identity not to sell your Bitcoin, I think gives the trolls and the strategy haters and the treasury company haters a ton of ammunition. Simultaneously, at the same time, the announcement last week,
the timing is interesting.
By 21 was massive. It was huge. And the reason it was huge, and Mahlers has been, you know, he did a show on this, he did a keynote on this.
I think I saw a good tweet. I'll pull it up.
Is that it's going to be really the only Bitcoin company that's publicly traded, that holds a lot of Bitcoin. I think they're the second largest holder of Bitcoin. That their business model isn't going to be about essentially financial engineering to accumulate more Bitcoin. Their business model is going to be about growing the cash flows for 21. There is no other Bitcoin company that's publicly traded that falls into that category, that again, not only covers a sector of the space, it covers multiple sectors of the space, right? So that I find very, very interesting. And then again, simultaneously, this happens the next week with Saylor, which kind of proves the point of what Mahlers was saying, because that was the thesis. It was like, listen, you can have a company that's holding Bitcoin, but if it doesn't produce cash flows, is it really a company? Because that was the whole treasury thing, guys. Like, that's what a lot of people missed. And there was a mania phase for Bitcoin. The mania phase didn't happen in the spot Bitcoin market. It happened in the Bitcoin treasury markets. And I think it got to a point where it was just like it entered a euphoric mania phase. The valuations didn't make sense, right? Because like a lot of these companies were trading like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times MNAV, which is the amount of Bitcoin that they're holding, but they didn't have the cash flows to go along with it. And then when the mania kind of blew up and you know, the prices started correcting, you know, a lot of these companies went below their MNAV. And if these companies were below their MNAV, the question is like, why would I buy a treasury company that's below MNAV, where there is a ton of there's a ton of risk in terms of dilution and in terms of management and in terms of execution. Why would I take on that additional risk if I can just buy spot Bitcoin without having to take that risk? You can make the argument that you are taking that risk because you want a levered play on Bitcoin. You can make that argument. And that argument maybe holds water. I have no doubt that that levered play during a bull market, I think, could potentially work in your favor. But you are taking additional risk. And what is that additional risk? You're taking counterparty risk, right? Ultimately, if it's not your Bitcoin in self-custody, it's not your Bitcoin. And that secondary risk is you're taking a risk on the management. You're taking a risk on the execution. And you're also being diluted potentially. So there's 3 separate topics there that, you know, you kind of have to consider and you kind of have to digest and think about, because this is what ultimately ended up playing out, man. Like the bear market conditions or the Bitcoin price conditions force strategy. They put them in a corner to essentially have to potentially sell a portion of their stack to pay their dividends. Now, you could see how that could spiral, which is another conversation, right? You could see how if this bear market continues and if we go down to the 50, 60, 40K region, bro, what else do you think they're going to do, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of things happening at the same time is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and here's the for the audio listeners, the Jack Mahler's tweet, it goes, yes, cash flow plus Bitcoin treasury is a dream. We're working on it. So obviously the timing of all of this, I think, is very interconnected, to say the least. So I think it wouldn't, like Nico said, it wouldn't have been a new story if Saylor's brand wasn't built on it. But as we've been covering for the last, I don't even know how many months, Nico, like when did the Bitcoin treasury companies all start collapsing? 4 or 5 months ago. We've been saying, look, there is an evolution happening right now in the Bitcoin treasury space. We all realize that the hype that we all expected in Bitcoin ended up in the Bitcoin treasury space. And now that hype is dying down, there is, a reiteration of how do we continue to do this? How do we actually provide value to people? And I think this is one of those cases. It really does seem like a nothing burger to me, or rather in like the grand scheme of things, but
a nothing burger for now.
Yeah, the Ponzi's good for now, but later.
The thing is, like, I don't know. I don't know if it's look.
It's not a Ponzi. It's just that's just the joke. That's just a joke. Well,
look. So I think we really have to boil it down to this, right? Like, so like if you define what a Ponzi is, right? You find what a Ponzi is.
Like from Google?
Like if
a Ponzi is you take money from someone to pay out, new people coming in. Oh wait, you take money from new people to pay out the old people in the scheme.
That's why the cash flow part is so important.
Ponzi for the people.
That's what
that should be Saylor's new marketing.
I didn't say that. That's why the cash flow part is so important. Like that's why it's so important, because again, you have an actual business that's actually producing revenue. That's actually producing revenue that they can use to buy Bitcoin, rather than, taking out loans or diluting their stock or any of this stuff. They actually have cash flow to buy more Bitcoin, which again, technically, Opti, we do run a Bitcoin company. We're not going out there.
We're a Bitcoin treasury company.
We're not going. I mean, technically, any company that has Bitcoin on their treasury is a Bitcoin treasury company.
I got a new scheme here. You got tokenize Opti. Send me cash, and I'll buy Bitcoin. I don't know the returns. No, I'm trolling.
So what I'm trying to say is like I think that there is a fundamental shift. And with that announcement that came last week.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest signal here.
Like it really kind of proves that, right? Like ultimately, if you don't have a cash flow producing business behind your business, is it really a business? And how much financial engineering could you get away with
or put another way, just taking people's money to buy Bitcoin isn't a business.
I think that's what the market has signaled.
That's the bigger signal.
I think that's what the market has signaled. And I think that the market got carried away with the mania of the treasury companies. They pumped like crazy, but there was this massive correction. And even with the price recovering, a lot of these treasury companies are not above their MNAV. So as an investor, would I want to buy one of those companies? It doesn't make sense. I'd rather just want to buy spot Bitcoin. Right, because then you take on additional risk. That additional risk is dilution, the custody aspect, and the execution by management. So you're taking on additional risk for that. Is that worth it for you as an investor? It could be. Like, who knows, right? But I think this is why that 21 announcement was so big, right? Because like really for the first time, you actually have a massive Bitcoin company. I think he called it the Bitcoin company that is focusing on generating cash flows. And they're going to use those cash flows to buy more Bitcoin rather than financial engineering to buy more Bitcoin, which I don't have the technical expertise or know-how to tell you how that's going to end. But I do have a whole lot of common sense. And, you know, we've seen this before, right?
Shots fired.
What do you mean?
You're like, yeah, you know, I think Mahler's is right, and I got some common sense. I don't know about what Saylor's doing anymore.
I mean, I remember talking.
Funny.
I had an interview with Mahler's at the Plan B in El Salvador before any of this stuff went down. And I asked him that same question along the lines. You guys could look at the recording, right? And I alluded to, you know, hey, so is this are you, you know, is this the model? That's what's happening. And I remember Mahler stepping in and saying, I didn't say that. Right. And then he clearly saw the writing on the wall. And then Mahler's and his partners pivoted completely, right? So now they are a company that's generating cash flow, right? Which is how companies are supposed to run.
That's just like a company.
That's how
Just a company.
That's how Simply runs. That's how companies run. What you do is you generate revenue, you generate profits, and then you put some of those profits into your treasury. That treasury could be cash or that treasury could be Bitcoin, right? But I think what a lot of these treasury companies are doing is that they're taking on a form of leverage. That's really what it is.
That's literally what they're doing.
And they're diluting their shareholders in the process, right? So I think it was a huge...
I think the best comparison I've heard is like Saylor's basically just doing what the Bank of England has done. You know, you take debt to acquire assets. It's like that's what they've been doing for a long time. Now they're just doing it on a Bitcoin standard. So I don't think what Nico and I are saying is necessarily that we think, you know, strategy is going to go down. Like we're not here to pile in on the FUD.
Oh, by the way, Mahler's went hard.
Did he?
On strategy.
I must have missed that.
Mahler's went hard on strategy. He was calling out, look, let's just boil it down to first principles, right? And again, we're observers here. I'm a big fan of what Saylor has done, and I'm a big fan of what Mahler's has done. I'm a big fan of any builder in the space, in the Bitcoin space, because I see a lot of people that are judging on the sidelines. And you know what? Judge not the man in the arena. It is so difficult, guys. And I'm speaking from firsthand experience. We might just be a small, you know, media company in the Bitcoin space, but speaking from firsthand experience, it is incredibly difficult to build. It is incredibly easy to just, you know, cast judgment on the builders. So I'm not casting judgment on Saylor, and I'm not casting judgment on any of the other treasury companies like Nakamoto, for example. I'm not casting judgment on any of those. But I will say, again, from a first principles perspective, if you're a company, what is the point of the company? The point of the company is to generate cash flows, and you get a valuation based on the cash flows that you're generating. What Saylor has done with strategy, again, a lot of this I don't understand. I know that his core business is not generating the cash flows to justify the valuation that strategy has. And this applies to a lot of the other treasury companies as well. I think you need, and again, I'm not, don't come from a finance background. I think you need a company that generates cash flows to be behind that company. Just basic first principles 101.
Yeah, well, I can't speak. We are rebuilding a profitable company from first principles.
Like,
oh, you need to make money so that you can save profits.
And again, I don't. And but again, I can't cast judgment on Saylor, and I can't cast judgment on on any of these things, because first of all, I don't have the expertise. And again, judge not the man in the arena. And I'm not in that arena. I'm not in the publicly traded Bitcoin treasury company arena for me to cast my judgment or my opinion on this. What I could do is just offer my commentary as a mere observer, right? And I think, again, all of this, to weave it back in and to close the loop, I think all of this could have been avoided if he just didn't say, never sell your Bitcoin. If you didn't say that line, all of this could have been avoided.
Well, I feel his pain because I also say a lot of stupid stuff that puts my foot in my mouth. When you talk a lot, it's just kind of part of the game. You say some things and you forget what you said a few years ago, and they're like, you're contradicting yourself, and you're like, well, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah. But listen, ultimately, I'm bullish on strategy. I'm bullish on Saylor. I'm bullish on 21. I'm bullish on all Bitcoin companies. I'm bullish on this entire space. If you don't have Bitcoin on your treasury, if you're not actively, putting your neck on the line, and you're not actively building on Bitcoin, and you don't have Bitcoin on your treasury, those are the people that I would criticize. Those are the losers in this game. The people that are actively taking risks and they're actively building, however, which way they see, they feel like building. Ultimately, the free market is going to decide who the winners and the losers are. We're going to observe and we're going to comment on all of this. It's just funny how this played out. And it is,
it's the timing. The timing
it's the timing. It's a little bit comedic as well. Right. But yeah, man, I mean, don't sell your Bitcoin, but
don't sell your Bitcoin asterisk,
right? And this is something that I've been humbled enough to be in this position where it's like, yeah, I'm never going to sell my Bitcoin. I've been put in positions where I've had to sell my Bitcoin to live or to pay for expenses or stuff like that. So it's like, I think that the American HODL said it best, right? And American HODL's been in the space for so long, and he was like, listen, it is incredibly hard to HODL. It's so hard to HODL. It's easy in theory if you think about it. It's so easy. Why is it easy?
Just hold your Bitcoin.
Just hold your Bitcoin. But it is so difficult because you have to live through the volatility of those ups and downs, right? So I think the takeaway from this is, and what American HODL said is, make sure that you keep the majority of your stack.
Yeah, that's exactly what
that's the key takeaway.
That's the whole takeaway.
That's the key takeaway, because it's like, okay, if you make it over the finish line a decade from now, and let's say you don't have 100% of your stack, but let's say you have 80% of your stack, you're going to be more than all right. You're going to be thriving, right? So, but again, we all have to go through this. We all have to go through this experience. We all have to go through,
it's also like, since we're in media, the nuance doesn't hit as hard as just never sell your Bitcoin. It's like, hey, never sell your Bitcoin, but just make it over with most of your stack. It just doesn't ring the same way.
It doesn't ring the same way. It doesn't ring the same way. And I think Saylor's, okay, we're going to end it with this, and then we're going to go to the next segment.
Yeah, 45 minutes on this. Wow. Nico's been gone for a while. We're ranting.
Never sell your Bitcoin unless you absolutely have to sell your
See,
Bitcoin.
that doesn't have the same ring.
It doesn't have the same ring. But that, I think that's the key takeaway here. That's the rule I've been living by if I had Bitcoin. And that's the rule Opti's been living by if he had Bitcoin.
I don't hold Bitcoin.
If he had Bitcoin. And I think that's the rule that every Bitcoiner should be living by, is try to keep as much as your Bitcoin as humanly possible and only sell if you really, really have to. But again, that doesn't ring as well.
It doesn't have the ring.
That doesn't slap.
Yeah, that doesn't slap.
That's too many words.
All right, rewind. Just never sell your Bitcoin.
We're back to stage one. Never sell your Bitcoin, ladies and gentlemen. But anyways, lots of interesting things going on. Lots of things to cover on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Happy to be back in the hot seat, man. It's been quite a while.
It's literally a hot seat.
It is a hot seat.
I don't know how we wear hoodies in here.
It's really hot in here. But
AC's
anyways,
cooked.
it's going to be a great show, guys. We're going to be right back in just a little bit. Today's episode is brought to you by Bitcoin Well Infinite. If you're a serious Bitcoin buyer, you've probably hit the same wall. Most platforms make you give up custody just to play by the rules. Bitcoin Well Infinite fixes that. They're North America's only publicly traded non-custodial OTC desk listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, which means transparent operations and zero counterparty risk.
You buy Bitcoin, you take immediate control, period. For trades over $50,000, you get a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, competitive spread starting at 1%, and immediate delivery straight to your own wallet. No custody risk, no withdrawal fees, just institutional grade execution with full asset control. If you want to buy Bitcoin the right way, book a free consultation at bitcoinwell.com/OTC or email infinite@bitcoinwell.com.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them down on paper. Paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store.
All right, guys, we are back for the numbers. And the current Bitcoin price is $81,480, which is a 35.4% discount from all-time high. We are at a $1.63 trillion market cap. And the block height is, let's refresh this. Block height is 948,194. Okay, guys, so should I pull out the chart to give you context to this one? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to subject you to that. But obviously, as we've been covering, or rather, as I've been covering on the show, we are seeing some very frothy price action right now. And I think yesterday I said, or actually since Friday, I've been basically saying if we get into the 80, 81, 82-ish range, then the conversation is getting very interesting. It is, you know, Nico will be back in 1 minute, so we will chat about this. He had to jump on a call real quick. If we get past this kind of range area that we're right now, roughly around 82K, maybe just a tad bit higher, it does start to invalidate the idea that we're going to be in a bear market until October. I know you guys don't necessarily always like the fact that we do talk about price on this show, but if you're not a hardcore Bitcoiner, that's what you're looking at. And I've said it multiple times on this show. I think, look, there's other aspects of Bitcoin besides the price that are very interesting, which we talk about all the time: censorship resistance, permissionless, peer-to-peer money, 21 million hard cap, all that good stuff. But I'm also, for lack of better terms, like a free market guy, and I think price does give us a lot of signal of what's going on. Anyways, there is a lot of conversations going on right now on Twitter in regards to the status quo idea of a 4-year cycle playing out. Basically, we're probably going, this might be a up in May, sell in May, and then we're going to be in a bear market until October. And then there's probably more of my lane where I'm like, we're already almost 40% off the bottom. I think the bear market's over, guys, okay? But I'm not the only one saying this stuff, okay? Here is just maybe some interesting signals on chain, or rather metrics to kind of keep in mind of where we currently are. So I know a lot of people, as I said, hold on, whoa, my screen's freaking out. I know many people probably don't care because it's like, I'm just buying Bitcoin. Like we said in the last segment, never sell your Bitcoin. You're like, I'm just buying Bitcoin. I'm holding it for 10 years. I really don't care about the price. I only come here just to hang out with my bros. Totally get that. There's another faction of people that are very high price. Did it kick me off? So here is the metrics and signals that this is probably like the best analysis, and maybe it's just me confirming my bias. But anyways, the first one is by James Van Straten, who is a senior analyst at CoinDesk. Interesting take. Hard, very spicy ending here, which I do fundamentally agree with. So he goes, even though Bitcoin is below the 200-day moving average, which by definition is bearish, Bitcoin has kept itself above the short-term hodler cost basis and true market mean. You have had oil at 115 and master MSTR spooking the market with Bitcoin sales, and Bitcoin is up. The bottom is in, the 4-year cycle is over, and we have all-time highs this year. Hold on. Where's my horns here? Have I not been saying this? This is why I'm saying this. This is why I'm bringing this up. But going further, I like this one from Checkmatey. This one is on the same line, very similar kind of perspective. He's saying pretty much the same thing. And he goes, wow, dude, my charts or my tabs are messed up. He goes, Bear's first line of defense was 78K, in line with the short-term holder cost basis and true market mean. Their second line of defense is the 200-day moving average at 83K, which I'd extend to 85K given the large supply cluster in that zone. You lose that, and the Bears' last stand is 95K at the 50-week moving average. But by the time you get to the Bears' last stand, you just have to ask yourself, how did we end up here? Which is the best part about this is I got Nico back. Look, I'm telling you, I don't know. But as I mentioned the last couple of days, this 82, 83K range is probably the most interesting range currently. If we break out to the upside into the 85, I think we can all admit sooner rather than later that the bottom has been in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sticking to what I said in the beginning of the show. Like, what I'm paying attention to is like what Bitcoin's price action is going to be during the summer. If Bitcoin maintains these levels during the summer, sorry. If Bitcoin maintains these levels over the summer, I'm feeling very optimistic about. Feeling very optimistic about whether Bitcoin's bottom whether Bitcoin has put in a bottom or not.
Big Sean Harris in the chat. What up, bro?
Now listen. So that's really what I'm paying attention to is Bitcoin going to maintain between the 80 and 60K region over the summer? If it does, then I think the bottom has been in. And now going back to the comment before I had to step out, James says, even though Bitcoin is below the 200 DMA, which by definition is bearish, Bitcoin has kept itself above the STH cost basis and true market mean. Also, by the way, I think the 200-day moving average right now is like 58 or 60K.
Let me see. I think it's 83.
No, it's not.
I'm pretty sure
You've had cycle is over, and we have all-time highs this year. I mean, I don't know how much I believe. I don't know how strongly or whatever, but I will tell you this.
Here we go. 200-day moving average, which is in blue.
I will tell you this.
Is 83 too.
If this does happen, what he's saying, which is the bottom is in, the 4-year cycle is over, and we're hitting the 100K region by the end of the year. I mean, at that point, we are in completely uncharted territory.
Dude, 190K by end of the year.
That would be absolutely bonkers, in my opinion. So let's see what happens. I'm here for
all-time high by end of year.
You're calling it?
We'll do without a doubt.
You're calling it?
I know it's wrong last year, but this is my year. This is my year now.
This is my year. Anyways, guys, we still have a ton of news to get to. Colombia wants to mine Bitcoin with surplus renewable energy. Another country, Max Kaiser's The Global Hash War is accelerating. You have another country, now a Latin American country, that is basically saying, hey, we have a ton of surplus renewable energy. Hey, against all the Bitcoin mining haters, they weren't being very honest and specific on what type of energy Bitcoin mining uses. It wouldn't make sense to set up a mining facility in the middle of Manhattan, would it? You have to obviously mine where the electricity is cheap, and it's basic supply and demand. If there's a ton of supply, the electricity should be cheap. And where is there a ton of excess electricity? Again, it's these renewable energy sources that tend to be in isolated locations. Therefore, it doesn't really make sense for them to get transported over long distances. And that's where the Bitcoin miners come in, and they buy that excess power. Now, if you're a government and you're sitting on, again, a giant hydroelectric dam, and you're only using 20 to 30% of that hydroelectric capacity, that extra capacity you can use to mine Bitcoin, which again is more revenue for the local government. It creates jobs. It's a win-win situation. And Colombia is seeing what Paraguay is doing, and it looks like they want to follow in the footsteps. But again, this is just a headline. Let's see if they actually follow through with it. Guys, we're going to be right back after the break in just a little bit. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin. Here's something most Bitcoin holders never figure out until it's too late. You're sitting on wealth you can't touch without selling. Ledin fixes that. Bitcoin-backed loans. You keep your stack, you get cash. And they just introduced their lowest rates ever. No complexity, no fine print. The larger the loan, the lower the rate. These new rates apply to all new loans, refinances, and renewals. You'll see all the rates up front before you apply. The new, lower rates come with Ledin's gold standard protection. Your Bitcoin remains custodied and is never lent out for interest. Perfect 8-year track record of keeping clients' assets safe. Auto top-ups, LTV alerts, and partial repayments to keep you in control. Repay whenever you want with zero penalties or monthly payments. Ledin's perfect $10 billion track record through every market cycle in the last 8 years speaks for itself. Don't choose between a great rate and the safety of your Bitcoin. Get both at Ledin. I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitKey. If you already self-custody your Bitcoin, you already know the deal with hardware wallets by now. Complex setups, clumsy interfaces, and a seed phrase that can be lost, stolen, or forgotten. BitKey fixes that. BitKey is a multi-sig hardware wallet built by the team behind Square and Cash App. It packs a cryptographic recovery system and built-in inheritance feature into an intuitive, easy-to-use wallet with no seed phrase to sweat over. It's simple, secure, self-custody without the stress. Time named BitKey one of the best inventions of 2024. Get 20% off at bitkey.world. That's BITKEY.world with the code SIMPLY. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. This is the article I was referring to. Colombia wants to mine Bitcoin with surplus renewable energy. The president of Colombia said Colombia's Caribbean coast could host Bitcoin mining facilities powered by surplus renewable energy, following a path similar to Paraguay. So, I mean, is this surprising at all? No, not at all. Here it says a 2024 World Bank report. Opti, could you cut to you for a second? Thank you. A 2024 World Bank report found Colombia generates as much as 75% of its electricity from renewable sources, more than twice the global average. The Caribbean coast in particular has wind and solar capacity that the country has barely tapped commercially. This is what I was talking about earlier, guys. And we actually had the privilege of being able to go to Itapu Dam to see one of our partners' facilities getting built out, which was, of course, HIVE Digital Technologies. They built out these facilities, and it was so crazy in like record time. It was so amazing to see. And I got to tour the Itapu Dam. And basically, the Itapu Dam is its massive dam, and it's sitting on the border of Brazil and Paraguay. And Brazil and Paraguay essentially share the resources of the dam. The thing is, the dam is so isolated that it has so much capacity. It's just not being used. And this is where Bitcoin miners come in, because Bitcoin miners, essentially, they can be flown anywhere. They can be taken anywhere around the world. They can be plugged in. They don't really require a very fast internet connection. And boom, all of a sudden, that excess energy that was otherwise going to waste, it wasn't being used, it wasn't being utilized, is now being transformed into sweet, sweet Satoshis. That's a win for HIVE, obviously. That's a win for the government of Paraguay. That's a win for the local communities. Electrical infrastructure gets built out locally. The government gets more tax revenue. And of course, HIVE benefits, right? Because they're mining more Bitcoin. So what you're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, is going to continue to accelerate all around the world. And what it's going to do is it's going to make the global energy grid more efficient, because all of a sudden, any type of cheap, and it has to be a stable jurisdiction, of course, but any cheap source of power that's not being used, eventually people are going to realize, hey, wait a second, we can turn that into Bitcoin and we have nothing to lose, right? So this is what the government of Paraguay, and again, one of the most expensive things to do with Bitcoin mining is building out the infrastructure itself. But if you already have a dam there, if you already have all this extra, renewable energy that's not being tapped into, it says it right there. The Caribbean coast in particular has wind and solar capacity that the country has barely tapped commercially. Like, it's an absolute no-brainer. It's a win-win for everyone. And this is why we went so hard when the New York Times was attacking Bitcoin. Why am I hearing myself? When they doctored the picture, that infamous New York Times article, and then Pierre Richard, I think he was with Riot at the time, came out and like just basically was trolling them, because they were making the case that Bitcoin mining was generating all these CO2 emissions, and that's not true. They use electricity, that's true, but what are these miners actually, like hot air? Hot air and noise. You could say hot air and noise, right? You could say those are the only two things that they output, right? So this is an absolute no-brainer, and this is going to fundamentally change the world, and it's going to be a win-win for everybody. It's going to be a win-win for the local communities. It's going to be a win-win for the governments. It's going to be a win-win for the companies that go in there and develop these sites. So I'm super glad to see that it's going in this direction. And again, Paraguay really, being the vanguard in this and really setting, the example. And this is going to happen everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Like the next 10 to 20 years, any site that is not tapped into, any site that has stranded excess energy or excess energy capability, they're going to end up mining Bitcoin. I'm going to go on record saying that because it's so obvious. Why would you just have that empty? This is the reason, by the way, that China had so much mining, by the way, because they had so much excess energy because of the dams that they built out. Because it's like kind of like this like centrally planned, it's a semi, it's like a semi-free market, semi-centrally planned. But anyways, had all this excess energy capability, and that's why China ended up having so much of the hash rate. And then they banned that, they banned Bitcoin mining. By the way, 15% of the hash rate still is in China, so it wasn't a completely effective ban. But the hash rate decentralized in the process. The hash rate is higher than it's ever been, continues to hit records. And now countries are realizing, wait a second, we can turn this excess energy into Bitcoin, which is money, right? So win-win, right? So as much as the legacy media had such a problem with Bitcoin mining, and they paid for these campaigns, and it was like really like it was a propaganda war trying to attack and demonize Bitcoin mining. I wonder why. But ultimately free market forces win eventually. Propaganda could only do so much. What they're working with is coercion, manipulation, and propaganda, and what we're working with is incentives. And I think incentives always rule the day, win the day. So then the next piece of news is this is a post by Eleanor Tourette, and she is a journalist and host of Crypto America. She was formerly at Fox Business. She says, new, a divide is forming in bank land over the yield compromise. Big banks with consumer-facing arms are taking issue, while those without appear more comfortable with the final language. Some community banks are also signaling support, though ICBA, which stands for Independent Community Bank, which represents them in Washington, is voicing concerns. Following my conversation with a larger bank that shares the concerns of the trades, the core issue is that the language is drafted too narrowly and still leaves room for crypto firms to work around the restriction. In their view, it's not a true compromise because it doesn't eliminate yield completely. It changes how it's offered. So again, this goes back to what is the main thing stopping the Clarity Act. The main thing stopping the Clarity Act is that the banks fear that consumers are going to withdraw their deposits and put it on exchanges or anything that's offering yield, because ultimately these banks are not offering interest on their deposits. Like, you can play with the wording, you could play with the yield word, you could play with the reward word, you can play with the interest word, but ultimately it's interest, right? The big banks right now, if you have a deposit in, let's say, one of the big banks in the United States, they're not paying you interest on that, even though they're making money off of your money, right? And this is why the banks fear the Clarity Act. This is why they fear a lot of these exchanges that are offering whatever you want to call it, interest, yield, rewards, whatever you want to call it, right? They don't want people taking their deposits out. And I know some people already that don't even have accounts with the legacy banking system. They're already using the new apps. They're already using Cash App. They're already using Coinbase. They're already using X, Y, and Z as an alternative to the traditional banking system. Because again, like, why should I pay $15 a month for you to hold my money and you're not even going to pay me interest on that? So the banks aren't willing to compete in the free market. They're trying to use Washington to try to get their way, which, I don't think is very competitive at all. Right. Which again leads to a deeper question. Like, is this really a free market? Like, are the banks really interested in competition? Because this doesn't really look like competitive behavior. This looks more like cartel-like behavior, to be honest with you. So anyways, quick update on the Clarity Act. Let's see if it gets passed. They are running out of time. We are burning daylight. The Democrats most likely will take back the House in November. It's a kind of a 50-50 in the Senate. If and when that happens, there's no chance the Clarity Act passes until at least 2030. And then in 2030, that depends if Republicans hold the presidency, if Republicans hold the House, and if Republicans hold the Senate, right? And I hope my big hope out of all of this is I hope that it stops being a partisan issue. And I hope that it becomes bipartisan, because ultimately Bitcoin is for anyone. Bitcoin is for people that are ideologically on the left, and Bitcoin is for people that are ideologically on the right. It helps everybody. Bitcoin is money for the people. It helps you save. And again, you don't get hurt by the inflation tax, so to speak, which disproportionately affects the lower and middle classes the most, I might add. So anyways, that's my take on that.
Wait, can I add a little context on this? Because
Sure.
I brought it up to the, not on that second part, the Clarity Act stuff. So guys, if you remember, I think it was Monday. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Monday that I gave you the update. Over the weekend, it seemed as if we finally got the quote unquote compromise on the Clarity Act. It seemed, at least from all coverage that we were getting, that the banks had finally compromised on the stablecoin reward yield. It seemed like they were good on the wording. We got a lot of the people in the quote crypto industry, particularly like Coinbase. They were like, look, we're not entirely happy with the compromise, but it's enough to get the whole bill through. And then yesterday, later in the day, actually, I think it was Monday night after I covered this, we got basically this update here where apparently the banks came up and they were like, actually, we're not happy with this wording here. This compromise isn't good enough. We got to change this whole thing. And remember, at least from the reporting that we got, at least the latest update that we got on yesterday, on Monday, is that the markup was going to happen on next Monday. And now, and on that timeline, they were saying July, or like middle July, it's going to pass. Now with this new controversy here that the banks aren't happy, I'm hearing them say that it's going to happen by August, which is exactly what I keep saying. It seems like it's just constantly being delayed. And now in the context of it's 5 months basically of arguing over this Clarity Act going through, it seems like this might be the tactic, that they're literally just trying to run out the clock before the midterms pop up. So who knows? Obviously, as I keep covering, everyone's expecting if this passes, then a lot of capital is going to flow in. It seems like the update we got on Monday or over the weekend, like, oh, we're going to get it through this week. Now we stalled again. We've hit another roadblock. So I guess at this point, we shouldn't even be holding our breath. It might pass. Probably not, but
Let's see what happens. All right, guys, we're going to be right back right after the break. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy, HIVE has quadrupled its global Bitcoin mining footprint and channels that same scale into high-performance compute, where their AI cloud is now ranked #1 in the world for network performance. At HIVE, you've got dual engines, Bitcoin and AI humming, roaring, accelerating in unison. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable digital infrastructure. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money, it's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay solid. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store.
All right, we are back.
We are back. All right, guys, let's do a debrief of the.
Yeah. You know, you guys are probably sick of me all last week, losing my mind, hearing imaginary hammers up here. But we haven't even talked really about the conference at all. Like, I don't even know what happened over there. So, Nico, debrief on the conference. What's your thoughts this year?
Yeah, so I mean, look, first of all, shout out to the Bitcoin conference team. They always do such a great job, putting it together.
Wait, you see our boy Nick?
Of course.
Shout out to Nick.
And yeah, he's a homie. And it was a great conference. Like always, they do such a great job. On the floor and on the programming. I got to speak on stage regarding self-custody, which was really cool, with a couple other Bitcoiners, which was fantastic. I got to interview a bunch of people from the entire industry. We'll be dropping those interviews on X throughout the week. But the biggest takeaway from the conference for me was, the bear market conferences, it really...
That was going to be my question. Did it feel like a bear market conference?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So yes, because like obviously there wasn't as many people as the year before, or there wasn't as many people as like when Trump obviously spoke at the conference. But you guys have to understand that the market conditions were way different back then. However, there was a lot of people. And the people that went are people that really, really believe in Bitcoin. Because if you're going to a Bitcoin conference when the price is down, I saw Mike Cernovich was there. We got to interview Tristan Thompson, right? NBA champion, which was really cool. The Simply booth was popping. Shout out to the Bitcoin Magazine team for hooking that up.
And the Zoom, our Zoomers for doing my job.
Shout out to the Zoomers for holding it down. And shout out to Weinicus as well. So we didn't bring as much as the team this year, which I kind of regret, because I called Opti the first day and I was like, dude, how do we set up these lights?
Yeah, okay. Look, full disclosure, I do everything at these conferences. Nico's just a pretty face.
No. So it's a tag team effort. Okay, it's a tag team effort. I
don't know. You just exposed yourself, bro.
It's a tag team effort between the entire team, but yes, I tend to do the interviews back to back, and then Opti helps produce it. Those roles,
really lessening my role.
Those roles were changed this year, where the Zoomers, really Bryson was producing, and of course, shout out to Daniel as well, who was holding down the Simply booth. So it was a great conference overall. But I think the biggest takeaway was the Jack Mallers announcement of the Bitcoin company.
Actually, I brought it up, and I don't mean to cut you off, but another big announcement coming out of this, it was actually multiple ones. It was, I think, like Jack Mallers and Jack Dorsey. The Jacks took over the conference because Jack Dorsey's the new BitKey and the did you see the Square payments in person?
Yeah, and I actually brought a BitKey.
You got the new one.
I got the new BitKey. I have to show it to you guys. But yeah, you go to bitkey.world. I have to update.
I think those were the best.
I have to redo the ad. But yeah,
Jack Squared took over.
The new BitKey it's fantastic. It has a screen.
I haven't even seen it.
It has a screen on the back. We're gonna do a reveal on tomorrow's show. I have to update the ad. But yeah, it was a great conference overall.
If someone said don't talk about the conference, we just started dumping.
It was a great conference overall. It was a great time. I got to race supercars, which was really cool.
I was showing them.
Which was super cool. I got to race a Corvette, like a Corvette supercar. Like it's like not street legal. It's like only meant for racetracks. It was so funny on the like my the instructor that I had, which was awesome, was like, like you're going really fast and it's like a technical course. So like, he's like brake, like change the shift. Or
wait,
whatever.
is he like in your ear or is
he's in your ear? He's in your ear.
He's not like sitting next to you.
You're wearing a headphone. Okay. He's like brake. And on the last lap, I just ignored him. And I just
crashed.
No, I was like drifting and I was like going like this with the wheel and like I was having a whole lot of fun. But yeah, man, that was fantastic. So overall, it was a great conference. Lots of signal this year. Every conference is good, man. Every conference is good. If you're trying to get a job in the industry, if you're just trying to hang out with fellow Bitcoiners, if you're trying to meet your favorite Bitcoiners, like perhaps the ones that written books, the ones that your favorite podcasters, these conferences are the place to go, because that's where you're going to get to meet them in the flesh, in person.
Wait, not to dox one of our
Zoomers. Specifically, the bear market conferences are some of the best because there's less people. So those people that you want to meet are not as overwhelmed. And I got to say, when I did my panel, and I did my panel on Industry Day. So Industry Day is usually a little bit more quiet because it's not GA day. So it's not general admission day. It's not as packed. And after my panel, what like broke my heart, like I could not believe it.
No one listened.
When I finished the panel, there was a line of like 10 or 15 people that wanted to say hi. And
Simply fans.
That was crazy.
Simply family. Simply fams.
I took selfies with all of them. Thank you guys so much for your support. Like your messages, like I almost broke down.
Wait, they actually were nice to you?
I almost broke. They're like, I know Opti's hard on you. Maybe that's your stick, but Nico, I want to let you know that I love you.
No, dude, this is how I show love. Is like, I make fun of my friends.
It was so heartfelt because again, like, you finish a panel, usually you just walk off stage and you go back to the booth and you go back to what you're doing working. And there was just, I think it was like 10 or 15 people that literally wanted to meet me, say hello, talk about the show, say hi to Opti, say hi to Sophie, say hi to Rustin, say hi to Dante, say hi to Hurley, say hi to Oceans. Oceans spoke at the conference as well, which is really cool. And that to me, like, like literally, like I wanted to cry because again, like what we see on our end, guys, is we see the comment section,
and you guys just make fun of us,
which Opti is like really like lively on, but like what we don't like, and I see the amount of people that are watching, and it's a lot of people. Like this would like, I met you in that line, thank you. Like shout out, man, shout out you, Maria. It was great. It broke my heart, man, like in a good way, because I was like, I finally got to put a face to the number on the screen.
No, it made you tear up because you remembered that not everyone hates you.
I didn't say
no,
that.
I'm trolling.
What I will say is like, it felt real, right?
It always does. That's the best part about it. It felt
real. Like I got to like right now we have more than 500-600 people watching across all the platforms. That's just a number on a screen. Like we don't know what that is, right? Like it's just a number. So, but if you add up that number, like if you think about it, like especially on like if we have a show that pops off that day, it's like thousands of people watching us live. Like it feels good. Opti and I are like, yo, this is a great show. And we're talking to ourselves in the background, but we don't actually like. It's just a number on a screen. Like we don't actually know and see.
I was saying it on Friday. I'm like, look, my imaginary friends on the other side of this camera, like I don't see you, and they're like, damn, we're not even real anymore.
So it was great to see you guys in person, and that really meant a lot to me because I got to put a face to the numbers that we see on the back end, which is the amount of people watching. So thank you guys for coming up to me, saying hi. I love taking pictures with you and talking to you guys about the show. We wouldn't be here without you guys. So it really, really meant the world to me and the team. So thank you for that. That was one of the highlights of my conference. So
and I just want to add one thing. We always say this about the conferences is, Nico says it constantly. If you want to get a job in the industry, you go to the conference. Literally, Nico and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for, what was that, 2022?
BitBlock Boom. Yeah.
Well, BitBlock Boom is when we like became friends. But was it, I think 2022 at Miami 2022 is when you're like, yo, Opti, join Simply. And I'm like, bet. And this year, well, rather last year, we hired one of our Zoomers from the conference. He was literally volunteering at the conference, and he just happened to be right by our booth. And he was like, oh, dude, you guys are the Simply guys. Like, I love you guys. And, you know, we just, anytime we see a Zoomer, we're like, yo, do you want a job? Like, we might have a role for a Zoomer in our company. And he's like, really? Like, all right, cool, dude. And we're like, cool. Email us afterwards. And then we hired him, and he's one of our rising stars at our company. And now, from 1 year ago, he was volunteering at the Bitcoin conference, and now this year he's at the conference with a Bitcoin company. And I was joking with him. I'm like, yo, how's it feel to be on this side of the, you know, Bitcoin conference, working for a company this year? And he's like, it's surreal. Like, it's actually crazy. Last year I was volunteering just because I wanted to help the Bitcoin conference, helping Bitcoin in any way possible. And now I work for a company on the other side.
And I'll mention too, like, part of like the Zoomer, like the Zoomers, is they got to see the interviews. They got to see the interviews with like some of the heavyweights in our industry. And, you know, again, it's very different when you see someone on stage and they're talking, but like, you know, the Simply booth was like, it wasn't small, but it was like very, it was very homey. So Nico in a good mood, Opti time to strike and demand. I don't even know how to say that.
It's how you say pizza.
Oh, pizza party. There we go. Pizza party at work. Maybe we should do a pizza party on Friday.
Pizza party. Nah, we're getting sushi, bro. You still owe me that sushi date.
Okay. So you know, it was great to see Daniel's face, just like watching.
Well, I wasn't going to dox him like that, but okay.
Watching, I mean, everyone knows Daniel.
I don't think so, but whatever. It is what it is.
It was great to see Daniel's face when we were doing these interviews.
Says it 4 times.
And then he was in the booth with the Tristan Thompson interview, which was like, you know, probably
he played, what's it, the Lakers? I don't know basketball like that.
I think so. I know that he's a champion.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know.
Anyways, speaking of conferences, we have an amazing conference coming up. You definitely don't want to miss it. The Mining Disrupt Conference, July 21st through the 23rd in Miami, Florida. This is the largest Bitcoin mining conference on planet Earth. You definitely don't want to miss it. Again, if you want to get a job in the industry, if you want to know more about Bitcoin mining, you definitely don't want to miss Mining Disrupt. Again, it's July 21st through the 23rd in Miami, Florida, 2026. You definitely don't want to miss it. If you use the link down below and you use the promo code, I think you'll get 20% off your tickets. And of course, the Simply Bitcoin crew will be there. We will be live streaming the conference. We will have a news desk as well.
Am I getting out of the basement for this one?
Bro, it's in Miami, dude. So it's in Miami, baby.
It doesn't mean anything.
We don't have to get on a flight. And I think we'll try to do a show from the floor. I think we pulled that off in Texas, I think.
Yeah,
we pulled that off in Texas.
Well,
so
we
will try to do a show from the Mining Disrupt floor, and of course we'll stream it to you guys so you guys could see the latest and greatest on what's happening in the Bitcoin mining industry. So many exciting things, so many announcements. Don't want to miss Mining Disrupt, July 21st through the 23rd in Miami, Florida. Get your tickets now. The promo is in the video/podcast description. All right, everybody. Happy to be back in the hot seat. I hope I didn't butcher too much of today's show. Getting back into the flow of things. The conference really took...
Well, your reading is always butchering. But,
I don't think that's going to change. But, you know, it's back. It's good to be back in the hot seat, guys.
Put Opti on a kid leash. Might have to.
We'll see you guys tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And for the ones that I saw you guys at the conference, it was so great to meet you guys. Thank you so much for supporting us. We wouldn't be here without you. See you guys later. Like the show, subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.